I'm Heather Law.
And I'm Nathan Law.
We have an adopted daughter named Blake. We met her. She had been going to our summer Bible study. We just started developing a relationship. Nate was leading the Bible studies. After we got back from the Bible study, she ended up coming over to our house one day, and I overheard her on the phone talking to her mom, and her mom was just like, well, if you want to do this whole Jesus thing, then we would like you to leave. You no longer have a place in our home. She was obviously upset, and I heard her on the phone, and she was like, Mom, I'm doing the whole Jesus thing, and if you guys can't help me with college, it's okay. She was like, I'll figure it out. If I have to work, if I have to drop out of school, it's all right. I'll figure it out. I love you, and I love Dad, but I love Jesus too. At that point, Nate and I kind of talked, and we were just like, maybe we should just open up our home. So we asked her. She was like, you guys have kids? I don't want to intrude. And she's just a really polite girl. She came back later, and she was like, I've been praying about it, and if I can live with you, then that would be wonderful. We didn't legally adopt her for several reasons. Number one, she's older. Number two, we really didn't want to ostracize her family. Like, we wanted her to continue to love them the whole entire time. She was just like, I love my family. I want to show them Jesus. And so it was really neat just to see how God coordinated that all.
Blake was at the point where she was a freshman now. She'd been living with us for a while. And she was at that point where she thought she wasn't gonna be able to go to college. And college wasn't even on our radar, except for Blake was in the picture. So Heather was like, no, she's going to get through college. I was like, okay. I was just like, yes, ma'am. So we go up to the place, and Blake's just bawling. She's like, she's thinking, I'm not even going to get to finish college here. And that was a big deal for her. She really wanted to get her degree.
She would be the first one in her family to have a college degree too.
So we go up there, and it was just amazing. God just started putting all the pieces into place. And she got different financial aid packets. She had to pay a little, but she ended up going through 4 years of college, living with us feeding her and her helping us. I mean, I don't say that to say we're doing all this stuff, but we were willing to give our lives away to Blake because that's what God had called us to do. And as a result, she graduated college with less than $10,000, 4 years in debt. And it was just like, man, us who didn't really even have many possessions, it was like we could give ourselves everything we had and see how God could take that. And we don't say that to say it was about us. We say that to say, man, God could take the little and make it a lot.
We've been trying to highlight generosity in this whole series, and we've done a generosity series that we have not talked about money. So that we wanted to highlight generosity in different ways, so time and influence and talents, and now I couldn't think of a better way that someone can be generous with their possessions than to take someone into their home. Here's our house. Here's our bathroom. Here's the kitchen. Here's all of this stuff, and you are welcome to it. You come in and you be part of this. That's Nate Law. Nate's our church planning resident. Nate is down at Brazos Point Fellowship today, spending some time down there. They're one of our partner churches that are going to help send him, so he's down there. So he's not going to hear us say all these really awesome things about him. But I don't know if you know this or not, but Nate's a grandpa. Nate's a grandpa because Blake, the daughter, she got married. She's had a baby. They helped raise Blake to love Jesus, and now they're grandparents at the ripe old age of 38 years old, and doing amazing things. And they, I don't know if you know this or not, they've got like 1 billion children. They've got six of their own, and then they adopted Blake on top of it. They're a wonderful family. I'm so thankful for them, and I'm thankful for how they are leading out, preparing to go and plant a church. And if God might be laying on your heart that desire to be part of a church plant, this is something we talk about all the time here. CityView is a church that we're about multiplication above addition. We're above churches going out for the sake of Jesus, rather than just become a giant church here. It's okay if we're a giant church here, but we want to make sure we're maintaining the sending out of churches and people. And so we tell you in the membership class, and if you've taken it recently, it's like this, is that we don't view our people, we don't view you as closed-handed. We don't call you our people. You're God's people. And you're part of this church for a while, and God may be moving you onto a church plant in the future, and we would be so happy to send you off. Not to see you go, but to launch you. We're thankful for people like Nate and Heather. Thankful for a lot of people in our church who are really generous in terms of their possessions. Allie and I have had the opportunity to have 3 different people live with us at different times, and it's been frankly hard, but joyful every time. This opportunity to bring someone into your house and to be generous with what you've got. Here's this principle, is that you just can't outgive God in any way. Do you understand that? Like, you can't outgive God. Generosity, write this down. It's not on your handout, but I came up with this morning, and it's good. So, generosity is not an action. Generosity is an attitude. See, isn't that good? It's even alliterative, you know? Generosity isn't an action. It's not a give money away, I'm generous. No, it's a heart attitude. It's my time is really God's time. And so if God wants me to use my time, I'm going to give it away. My stuff, it's not my stuff, it's God's stuff. So here, it's open, utilize it. Now I'm going to steward it properly. My influence, your leadership ability, whatever it is, in whatever way you have it, your influence is a thing that you give away to help others, to encourage the kingdom's growth. Your talents are the same. You take those talents and you use them for the glory of God, that they would go out, that they would be used. Today we're going to talk about the possessions. We're going to talk about how we utilize possessions, what they're about. If you have your Bibles, Matthew chapter 6 is where we're going to be. So you can open your Bible to Matthew 6 or turn it on to Matthew 6, or you can look at it on the screen. It'll be there. What we're going to do is I'm going to teach through the verses, and then we're going to make some points at the end. As you're getting to Matthew 6, here's kind of the background for this. This is part of the Sermon on the Mount. So the Sermon on the Mount is the longest discourse, speech, talk, message, whatever you want to use, of Jesus. Longest continuous. It goes for 3 chapters, Matthew 5, 6, and 7. And in this sermon, in this message, what Jesus is doing here is showing what his kingdom is like. And he's showing that his kingdom is significantly different than the kingdoms of this world. That the kingdom of this world looks like this, and the kingdom of me, the way I'm going to run things, what I'm about, if you're following me, this is what it's about, looks this way. Like, here's a verse from there. I'm sure you've heard it before, but it's in verse 5 of chapter 5. It says, "Blessed are the meek, for they shall inherit the earth," right? That sounds countercultural. When I was a kid, I had this Charles Barkley t-shirt that it was oversized. Remember back in the early 90s when everything was oversized, like that was the style, and you look back and you're like, that was ridiculous. It's coming back, y'all. I don't know. It's back. Anyway, Charles Barkley was on the shirt, and it said, "The meek shall inherit the earth, but they still won't get the ball." I don't know why I still remember that. I don't really know why I told you that, other than it was on my mind. Meek people, it's power under control, right? And that's what meek means. They aren't going to go and grab the world, but what Jesus is saying, the meek shall inherit the earth. Like, it's going to come to them. He goes on a little bit further in this sermon, and he talks about anger. And if your anger turns to hatred and it's directed at a person, then that hatred is essentially murder. Like, you may not take a knife and stab someone, take a gun and shoot someone. You may not actually murder someone, but if you have hate towards someone, then what's going on is that inside your heart, there's essentially, the essential sin of murder has been done. So he's taking this thing and he's saying, that's not going to be acceptable in my kingdom. He goes on a little bit further and he talks about retaliation. I love teaching this to my kids because they are super good at the world's way of retaliation, right? One of them gets hit. What comes next? Bigger hit the other way. Yesterday we were in the car and Drew had his foot up on our youngest seat and he had his foot up like that, and Judd just threw Drew's foot to the ground. You know, kind of aggressive, but his feet aren't allowed to be on his seat. So what Drew did, just kicked him right in the face. You know, because we're good at retaliating. Everybody was fine. It's boys. They're growing up. It's what happens. And so we got to have this really great conversation about what Jesus says retaliation is supposed to be like. That when we're hit on the cheek, what we do is we punch them back in their cheek harder. False, no. Like when we're hit on one cheek, then we turn to them the other. Like we're different. The kingdom of Jesus is different. It's altogether different than what this world sees. If you have lust in your heart, if this thing, you're looking at someone of the opposite sex, and there's this lust inside of your heart that says, whoa, yeah, it's like you've committed adultery already. I mean, Jesus is saying it's not just about what you're doing out here, it's about what's going on in here. And as we walk into this part of Matthew chapter 6, you're going to kind of see this thing played out like dually again. I'm going to read the whole text, and we're going to go back and teach it, and then we're going to make some points. And it goes like this. Do not lay up for yourselves treasures on earth, where moth and rust destroy, and where thieves break in and steal. But lay up for yourselves treasures in heaven, where neither moth nor rust destroys, and where thieves do not break in and steal. For where your treasure is, there your heart will be also. Verse 22, the eye is the lamp of the body. So if your eye is healthy, your whole body will be full of light. But if your eye is bad, your whole body will be full of darkness. If then the light in you is darkness, how great is the darkness? Verse 24, no one can serve two masters, for he will hate the one and love the other, or he'll be devoted to the one and despise the other. You cannot serve God and money. All right, Jason, I thought you said we weren't talking about money this series. I thought it was generosity, not talking about money. It is. Now let me tell you why that money word is there. That money word is a bad translation. See what happened, the King James Version, anybody ever read the King James Version when they were kids or whatever? Like that's the version I grew up with. I knew that stuff for a long time, the ye's, the these, the thous, all that stuff, very hard to understand. That's why we read from the ESV. It's called the English Standard Version. That's the version we use here. If somebody's asking me, Jason, what Bible should I read? What's a good English translation? I always recommend the English Standard Version. There's a lot of good versions out there, but the English Standard Version is my favorite because it kind of interprets the Greek and Hebrew really well, and it's also very readable. So if you're looking for a Bible, English Standard Version, that's the one I recommend. That's the only one you're going to hear me recommend, generally speaking. If you're asking for something else, I'll help you work that out. But this is my recommendation. But they got this one wrong. It says money. And it's close, because that's how the English mind thinks about our treasure. But there's this old word in the King James. And the word is, you're going to love this one, mammon. Not to be confused with manna. Manna happened for the Israelites when they were wandering in the desert. Remember that deal? Mammon is a word that means all of your wealth. Like for us, when we think of wealth, we're thinking of the cash that we have in the bank, right? That's kind of generally where we think in our Western mindset. All right, remember something. First century Israel, they didn't really have a big banking system. There was definitely not Bank of America, online banking, Chase. Well, that was not there. It wasn't a thing. For them, their wealth was was about their land, was about their possessions, was about their stuff. So when we're looking at Matthew 6:19 through 24, it's teaching about possessions, not money. Money is a tiny, minuscule, small part of what's going on here. Rather, what this is all about is possessions. It's about the things that you have. And as we walk through generosity and we walk through this attitude of it, not an action of it, then I'm gonna teach you a few things as we hit through here, and then we're gonna make some points. Verse 19 says this: "Don't lay up for yourselves treasures on earth, where moth and rust destroy, and where thieves break in and steal." Don't worry about accumulating the best stuff, because guess what happens? Even the best stuff, moths get to. Even the best clothes, moths get to. Even if you try your hardest and you store it just right, it's still going to break down. Even your car, that car that you love so much, the big dually. I got cut off in traffic the other day. Sorry, this is Jason's little frustration moment for a second. I got cut off in traffic 3 times within 10 minutes. You're driving like a grandma, Jason. That's what's happening. I'm not driving like a grandma. I just got cut off. Cut off by one Charger, a giant truck. I mean, and not like a semi truck, but like a giant truck. Like essentially, it was a monster truck. And then got cut off in traffic by like an F-150 that thought it was a monster truck, but it wasn't. So frustrating. But these guys, like you get this amazing truck, this amazing car, you have this amazing thing, and you know what still happens to it? Breaks down. Breaks down. We have a sweet van. Sometimes I call it the Millennium Falcon because it's got so many buttons. So much stuff to do. It's got a screen. Doesn't work anymore, really. But you can push everything, and the controls are there. The kids love to touch all the buttons. The ones that still work are the heating buttons that heat up the entire van, and they're really good at turning it up to 90 degrees. The van that we have, it still runs. We're driving that baby into the ground. And the ground is coming a lot more quickly as the years go by. You understand? We just had to replace our stupid fence. Is there anything more adulting in life than having to pay for a fence? It's just a bunch of wood that surrounds your house. I know in Texas that's a thing. I grew up in Michigan, and in Michigan we didn't have fences. Your grass rolled into your neighbor's grass. And it was just, I had this little game when I was cutting the grass. I'd always try to take a few extra inches for the Crandall world. Expand the Crandall kingdom just a little bit more. When we got up to the neighbor's wall, it felt like it was too much, though. We spend so much time, effort, worry, and concern on our stuff. Now, I'm not saying you shouldn't steward stuff well. I'm not saying that you shouldn't care for those things that God's placed into your hand. You shouldn't let your house become dilapidated. You should change the oil in your car. You should do the things that maintain, because God's given those to you for a stewardship, definitely. But we don't spend all our time trying to accumulate, trying to have more for the sake of having more, trying to have better just for the sake of having better. There's got to be reason behind, because these things, they go away. I mean, Jesus says, where moth and rust destroy, where thieves break in and steal. Like stuff's going to get destroyed. And then, you know what else in this world? People can steal it. People can just flat out take it. I have a friend, he's a church planner in North Houston. His trailer, you know this trailer? Last week, if you were here, we did not have a trailer. It did not get stolen. They just didn't cash our check at the place where we store it at, and so they didn't let us have it. Whatever. We got it back now. It's good. Everybody's on the same page. We're fine. A friend of mine in North Houston, he had a trailer like that, had it stolen. All this stuff taken out of it. thousands of dollars worth of equipment. Like, how does a trailer, like, they didn't even take the trailer. Do you understand? Like, they took the stuff out of the trailer. Like, it was at a lot, and they pulled the stuff out, and they just grabbed the stuff, put it in a car. How is that even possible? I don't know. Again, you're just getting ranting, Jason, this week. I'm sorry. But thieves steal, right? They take. It's not theirs, and they grab it. When we accumulate stuff, then our hearts break when that stuff's taken. Instead, Jesus says, lay up for yourselves treasures in heaven. Like, there's no moths there. Or if they are, they aren't destroying things. I wonder if there's mosquitoes there, side. And thieves don't break in and steal there. And he says to do it this way. He says to don't accumulate here, accumulate there. Don't accumulate in this life. Work to accumulate in that life. Don't accumulate in this world that James says it's a vapor that's here for a little while and then goes away. Like, don't accumulate in this life. Look towards that one. Look towards the eternal. He says it because where your treasure is, that's where your heart is. Wherever you're accumulating for, it demonstrates the disposition of your heart. Whatever you are diligently pursuing with all of you, it's showing what's going on inside of you. Let's keep walking. These next two verses, they're confusing, but we're going to work it out. I'm going to make sure you guys understand it. The eye is the lamp of the body. So if your eye is healthy, your whole body will be full of light. But if your eye is bad, your whole body will be full of darkness. So take those two things real fast. So if your eye is healthy, think about if your eye is working properly. Okay, if your eye is working properly, then what happens if your eye is working properly? Well, then you can see properly. Your body functions better when your eyes are working correctly. Does that make sense? You get up think about this. You get up in the middle of the night. You can't see anything. You gotta get to the bathroom. I walk on Legos, or I stub my toe somewhere. Those are things that happen. I used to have a dog. I didn't have a dog. My brother had a dog, and when I was home for Christmas, that dog wasn't exactly potty trained, and that dog really didn't like it when I came to invade while I was home for Christmas. And so I was home for Christmas. That dog liked to use my room as his toilet. It was phenomenal. Mom and Dad, they're back there. They will tell you that there's in no way exaggeration. And there have been a few times where that dog decided that he needed to leave me a nice little package right next to my bed in the middle of the night. I'll leave that to your imagination. There's been a few times where that package left there in the middle of the night when it was dark outside, dark in my room while I'm sleeping, that my foot found that package. And then I was immediately angry. Have you ever had, like, one of those things where just like something wells up in you? We were singing that song a minute ago, Do It Again. It welled up in me with like joy and hope, like God's doing amazing things. Yes, like that welled something good up in me. Well, like, you step on a little package that your brother's dog leaves for you inside of your room in the middle of the night, 2 a.m. or so, and that's not, Thanksgiving doesn't pour out. You know what I mean? Sorry, I just kept thinking, that dog's name is Dexter. Went home to be with, I don't know, it's dead now. I am not sorry about it. My brother is, and I love my brother, so I guess I care, but whatever, I don't really. When your eyes aren't working right, you don't see right, causes everything to fail. When your eyes don't work at all, so if the eye is the lamp, but then the eye doesn't work at all, then you got nothing. Your body doesn't work properly. It'll still work, right? We were just at, Allie did the half marathon last week. I normally run it with her. I have plantar fasciitis because, I don't know, I'm getting old. And she ran it, was amazing. She set her personal best. We're so proud of her for that. We got to go and support her. And while we were there, we saw a lot of people who were disabled, like guys in wheelchairs finishing this thing. So many people with prosthetics finishing this thing. Like it was truly an inspiring thing to see people go across the finish line, and they had so much had to go in for them to train to get to that point. It was incredible. It was amazing. And there were all of these blind runners. Like, think about how difficult that is. Like, if you just walk, some people just have trouble walking, right? You're going to walk and you're just going to trip and fall because maybe there's a little pavement issue, or maybe your other foot was just there. So many blind people just finishing this race and getting done with this race. But such a struggle to get there. And if you're blind, you aren't seeing it completely. And so he's setting this up. If the lamp, if it's working properly and you're focusing on the right thing, then what's coming into your body is light. And if your eyes aren't working at all, then it's all that's in there is darkness. Then the last phrase in this verse says this: if then the light in you is darkness, how great is the darkness? So if your eyes work, but what you're looking at is wrong, if your eyes work, but what you're looking at is the wrong thing, if your eyes work and you're serving the wrong master, then what's getting into you and what's going to filter through you and what's going to affect you is darkness. And it says, how great the darkness. Like, essentially, you'd be better off not having eyes. So he's breaking this thing down, like here's this, and it's essentially an issue of what are you looking at? What are you focusing on? What do you see there? And it comes together in the last verse. It says this: no one can serve two masters, for either he'll hate the one and love the other, he'll be devoted to the one and despise the other. You can't serve God and mammon. You can't have two masters. You can't. Jason, I've got a boss in God. Well, here's the thing. God needs to be the thing you focus on, the person you focus on. And what God lays out is that if there are people in authority over you, then what you do is you honor and respect them, not because they deserve it, but as to the Lord. Colossians teaches that. Romans teaches that. It's all over the Bible. There's somebody who has authority over me. Yes, then what you do, you honor that authority. Jason, they're terrible people. Okay. There's a lot of terrible people. They asked Jesus, should we pay taxes? All the libertarians are like, no, we shouldn't. Jesus said, who's on the coin? It's Caesar. He says, give to Caesar what's Caesar's. Yeah, we pay taxes. Caesar was terrible. Condoned the killing of Christians all over. Condoned the killing of Jews as necessary. Jesus said, we render to Caesar what's Caesar's. Yeah, we pay the taxes. We honor that. We honor the things we're supposed to honor. You do the thing you're supposed to do. You obey the boss. You obey your father. You obey your mother. You do these things. But God is your primary focus. And really, it's breaking down here this dichotomy of here's God as a focus or stuff as a focus. And it's saying that there's two options essentially. What are you going to spend your time focusing on? Is it going to be God, what he has to say for your life, the understanding of what his will might be for you? Or is it going to be the accumulation of stuff, things, money, more. That, in the end, terminates. Possessions have a way of possessing us. Have you ever thought about that? Your possessions kind of a way of grabbing you and taking you in and holding you and like, oh, I love this house so much, I don't ever want to let go of this house. I love this house, I love this car so much. I love this, this thing, it just holds on to you. And if things hold you, if things hold your gaze, then God is not. The new car, the new floors, the new windows, the new whatever is the obsession of your heart, well, then there's a problem, my friends. I want to walk through 4 points, then we'll be done. Number 1, what do we do in terms of possessions now? What I'm going to call us to do is that we would treasure the eternal over the temporal. I'm going to say we need to treasure the eternal over the temporal. That what matters is what's the long thing out there, the true long game. We're playing the long game. We're not playing the short game. We're about what's out there. We're about what's to come. We're not about what's happening next week. Number 2, that we don't allow possessions to possess you. Don't allow those possessions, those things, that stuff to be all that your heart cares for. Don't let possessions possess you. Number 3, sometimes we might need a matrix for how we make decisions, how we evaluate if a possession might possess us. And here it is. So consciously evaluate your possession decisions. We've got 4 questions that you can ask yourself as you're working through something. Car, house, whatever. First, what are your blind spots? When I'm talking to you, I have no idea what's happening behind me. Anybody could be back there. Now we lock the door that goes up to the stage, so probably nobody's back there unless they've been hiding forever, and then they could just jump out and stab me. I've got blind spots. When I'm talking, when I'm speaking, when I'm looking at something, I'm not looking at something else. Guess what? You have blind spots too. There are things in your life that you're conscious of weaknesses for yourself in. But there are also things in your life where you are not conscious of. And that's when you need friends, accountability, and people around you. Perhaps something like a life group that can help call you out when you're blind on an issue. Question number 2. Ask yourself this: why do you want it? Because I need a new truck. Why? Because the old truck is 2017. I need it in 2019, clearly. Why do you need the new TV? Because now what the TV does is it's not just flat, it curves towards you. What? I'm not anti-curved TVs, all right? Whatever. But why? Like, why do you want it? What's the purpose? What are you going to use it for? Number 3, who have you talked to about it? It's kind of amplifying that first question. You know, you try to recognize your typical blind spots, and then you go to someone else and say, what do you think? And, all right, here's the thing. Don't go to the enabler, okay? Because sometimes we've all got a friend who's just the spender. You know the friend who's the spender? And you can go to them and be like, I'm thinking about getting this. And they're like, yes, you should get this and this and this and this and this. That's not the person you go to. You go to the person who's honest with you. Not the person who's just like, yeah, let's all buy all the things all the time now. And we'll pay for it someday. I feel like Dave Ramsey. And no, different. Go to somebody who tells you the truth. Somebody who's honest with you. Nobody likes it when they're told the truth, though, right? Hey, I like this idea. Oh, it's not a good idea. Shut up. You're not friends with me anymore. It's essentially how my 5 and 7-year-old deal with things, 6 and 7-year-old deal with things. And then a second later, they're laughing and they're the best friends again. Keep people who are truth tellers to you close. Somebody who's honest with you. Keep them close to you. Those people are like jewels. Fourth question. How will this be used for the kingdom? A deacon at our previous church, when we got there in 2005, he came up to me and said, Jason, you don't know me at all, so you probably need to, do background checks on us or whatever. And he said, I've got 4 kids in your student ministry, and I'm like, I'm gonna need to get to know you pretty well. He said, our house is for the use of the church whenever you need it. He said, we don't deserve that house. God gave it to us, and so we just decided when we did that this house is going to be kingdom used. That has always been this example in my mind and heart about how you deal with your possessions. Understand that this thing is God's thing that we're stewarding. And so we use this thing for the sake of God's kingdom. Number 4, coming around the bend here. Remember, God is the source of all that you have. Remember that God is the source of all that you have. James 1:17 says that all good perfect gifts come down from the Father of lights. So anything that you have that's good is from God. Anything that you have is from the Lord. It's His. He's given it to you. It's a gift. Remember the source of those things.